Hello, I'm Tom Merrills from TJM Law. I'm an experienced solicitor in leasehold enfranchisement, dealing with buying the freeholds, and have been dealing with this type of matter for 7 years now. This is the second of the 3 videos on buying the freehold, and in this particular video I shall explain a little bit more about the process and procedure on buying your freehold using your statutory rights. Generally speaking, most blocks of flats qualify for the right to buy your freehold under the statutory legislation. However, you do need to firstly establish that your building does qualify, and for this there are 3 qualifying criteria. The first is that the building itself, if it has a commercial premises element part to it, then that commercial element must be less than 25%, so the floor area must be less than 25% of the total surface area of the building. The second thing to establish is that at least 2/3 of the total flats in the building are qualifying flats, and by this we mean that the flats were originally granted for more than 21 years. Now, most flat leases are around 99 years to 125 years, so most flats will be qualifying flats. Flats that are not qualifying are flats that are not subject to a lease, i.e. they could be let out by the landlord direct under a simple 12-month tenancy agreement, or other types of leases that are not long residential leases, such as assured tenancies. The third thing we must establish is that at least 50% of the flat owners must participate. So, for example, if you have a block of 19 flats, then at least 10 of those flats must participate. If you had a block of, say, 4 flats, then at least 2 of those flats must participate. Where there are just 2 flats in a building, i.e. in a masonette type situation, then both flats must participate. So, assuming you have at least 50% participation and the building qualifies, the flat owners can then force the freeholder to sell the freehold to them. The next step is to have a formal valuation report carried out by a qualified and experienced surveyor, who should then give you a realistic purchase price and also a lowercase figure, a best case scenario figure if you like, that we propose putting into the notice. And after that stage we can then proceed to preparing the notice. In a nutshell, what happens is that we prepare a notice that each and every participant must sign, and that notice is then served on the freeholder. The freeholder then has 2 months to respond with a counter notice, and they usually do respond with a counter notice. Failure to respond with a counter notice will mean that you get to acquire the freehold on the terms of your initial notice, in other words, at the price that you have stipulated in your notice. Okay, so let's assume that the freehold has responded with a counter notice. They would ordinarily put in a higher figure, and generally speaking, your lower figure and their higher figure set the boundaries for negotiations. Then it is down to your surveyor and the freeholder's surveyor to negotiate a settlement, and if they do reach an agreement as to the purchase price, then once again it's on to the conveyancing stage, where we deal with the transfer of the freehold title over to you as individuals, or if we've set up a company, then to the company. If the freeholder themselves or through their surveyor decide not to play ball, then 2 months after the counter notice has been received, we can then make an application to the Leasehold Valuation Tribunal, the LVT. To do this ordinarily puts pressure on the freeholder to settle, because the freeholder then has to pay for costs from that point up to and including the cost of the instructing the surveyor and or solicitor to represent them at the Leasehold Valuation Tribunal. What we normally find in practice is that the freeholder will settle shortly after we have prepared proceedings, although not in every case. So the matter may end up at the Leasehold Valuation Tribunal. If it does, the tribunal will determine what a reasonable purchase price will be, and once that determination has been received, then again we go on to the conveyancing stage. Now that briefly is a summary of how you purchase the freehold title under the statutory route. There are, however, various different ways the matter can go. For example, the building might not qualify in the first place simply because there's a resident landlord. More on that in our information sheets, but suffice to say that sometimes the matter is not as straightforward as it initially appears to be. Thanks for watching once again. I'm Tom Merrills from TJM Law, and please do not hesitate to contact us should you have any further questions.